Okay, I think we're ready to begin with our webinar today. All right, is everybody ready to get rolling? All right, here we go. I've been really looking forward to this webinar. I think that we have some wonderful information to share for all of you that could join us, and thank you for making the time to be here with us today. My name is Lorianne Macco, and I am the director for the NTID Alumni and Constituent Relations Department at NTID. It's such a pleasure for me to host this webinar. This is the third in our ongoing series, and we're gonna hopefully keep this rolling. I just wanted to thank our interpreters today and our captionists who are providing support and the technology support that we've been given to make all of this happen. We really appreciate all of your involvement. We have a few housekeeping rules that we'd like to discuss before we start. If you are using the captioning, on the bottom of your screen, there's a button that you need to turn on and off for closed captioning, just to let you know. If you want the audio, there's a button to turn that on and off also. During the presentation though, we are going to actually be controlling the presentation itself. And on your screen, you can make the videos larger or smaller and the PowerPoint larger and smaller by clicking on the vertical line between the two sections and moving it and adjusting it. If you have any questions, you can type them in the Q&A, but during the presentations, we ask that you try and hold those until the end of the presentation, and we will answer those at the end, not during the presentation itself. If we have time at the end, we also would like to have an open chat where all of you could chat together and talk about some of your strategies, and then we could upload those comments and things later for you. Okay, with all of that said, I would like to introduce our two wonderful presenters. Thank you so much for coming and doing this today. We have Kelsey Wall and Jessica Hurd with us, and both of them work for and are senior counselors for the academic advisors with NTID Counseling and Academic Servicing on campus here. They do all kinds of counseling and different advising things. They have so much experience between the two of them, and they have a lot of wonderful information that they want to share with you today. So I'm not going to go on and drag this out anymore. I'm going to open up the floor to Kelsey and Jessica. Thank you so much, and please take it away. Okay, hello everyone. Hi everyone. Lorianne. Oh, you just did such a nice job of like summarizing our roles here. So just again, my name is Jessica Hurd, and my sign name is on the chin, the pinky on the chin. And hello, my name is Kelsey Wall, and my name is a K on the chin for Kelsey. It's so nice to be here with you today. So I never actually graduated from RIT myself, but I was so happy to connect and be able to join and talk to you as alumni today. I see and want to see all of these wonderful people here and all of your wonderful stories, and I'm excited about it. So just to let you know, this is my opportunity also to connect through this presentation with all of you, and hopefully we can practice some of these things, these strategies that we have, and they'll help you. I'll let you read the slide first. Before I get into explaining our 3 objectives, quickly, I just want to check in with you about the communication. I would just want to make sure that everyone is okay and that your videos are good. As Lorianne mentioned also, we'll have a question and answer discussion open that you can put question and answers in, and any issues that pop up or any communication needs that pop up, you can put them in the Q&A and that'll pop up so that we can adjust if there's some issue with the communication that needs to be changed along the way, if you just let us know. I see one question here already. Oh, I think it's already been taken care of. Okay, so today we have 3 objectives. First one, we want to review what is stress and, you know, your understanding of stress and how it affects you, specifically related to the COVID-19 pandemic and your situation. And we want to review how we can handle that stress and what we can do about it. Secondly, we want to offer up some different coping strategies and mechanisms to handle that stress in your daily lives. Finally, we want to provide you with some resources to help you stay connected. Although we are practicing social distancing, which is really more like physical distancing in actuality, we still need to be social. We still need to connect and interact with one another. Before we get going and overwhelm you with so much information and strategies, we would like to take a moment just to pause and look at COVID-19 and how it's affecting us. For me, it's caused me a lot of stress. I just feel like I'm constantly trying to catch up with all of the changes, dealing with the students and everyone, trying to figure out how to work from home. It's important that we take that time to pause and reflect on our experiences related with COVID-19 and what we're feeling, the impacts on all of the people around us, including ourselves during this time. Maybe you're experiencing friends and family that are actually sick. Maybe you're struggling with the social distancing. Maybe you're struggling with the changes to your routines or your emotions. Maybe you're feeling sadness or frustration or just complete isolation and a disconnect from the world right now. So we'd like you to just take a moment on your own to think and reflect about your own experience. And internally, just how are you feeling? Check in with yourself. Somebody said that the picture is distracting, so hold on one second. Okay, so while Jessica's taking care of that, I'd like to take this opportunity before we start discussing about stress and anxiety and what that means. I want to take this opportunity to return to safety. I'd like to come up and have us ground ourselves in this moment. So during this presentation, if at any time you're feeling overwhelmed or just something emotionally comes up for you while we're presenting, just take that opportunity to go back and analyze what you're feeling. And if you need to leave at that moment, that's fine, and internalize and do what you need to do to make yourself feel safe. Right now, I'd like to lead you through a mindfulness exercise to help you ground yourself during this presentation. This relates to deep breathing and a color exercise. This is a visualization exercise related to colors. I want you to notice the colors that are around you in the space that you're in right now. First, I'd like you to get yourself seated in a comfortable position with your feet on the floor. Have them a comfortable distance apart and flat on the floor. Place your hands in a resting position, either in your lap or to the sides. Listen to your breathing. Notice it. Take a breath in and out. Pay attention. You can use either your nose or your mouth to breathe in and out. It doesn't matter. As you breathe in and out, feel the expansion and contraction of your stomach. You're going to take a breath in for 3 seconds, hold it for 2 seconds, and then breathe out for 4 seconds. We're going to practice this together now. Breathe in, hold, breathe out. Breathe in 3 seconds, hold 2 seconds, breathe out 4 seconds. Breathe in, hold, out. Okay. Now I'd like to introduce the color visualization. Look around your room. Notice your space. And what colors are there? Breathe in, hold, and out. Now visualize the color red enveloping you and surrounding you. Think of roses, strawberries, flowers, maybe a sunset with that beautiful red aura. And visualize the color red surrounding you. Breathe in, hold, out. Now, let the color red become orange. And visualize a field of pumpkins or an apricot. Anything that's orange. Breathe in, hold, and out. Orange now transitions to yellow. Envelop yourself in the feeling of the sun and yellow. Feel it surround you. Yellow everywhere. And visualize sunflowers, daffodils, or fall leaves. Breathe in, hold, and out. Yellow transitions to green. Maybe you visualize a field of grass that you're sitting in or walking through. A forest. Breathe in, hold, or out. Green becomes blue now. Envelop yourself with blue. Feel it wrap around you. Maybe you see water, the ocean, and you're floating on that ocean. Imagine blue or the sky. Breathe in, hold, and out. Blue becomes purple. Maybe you're envisioning a sunrise or a lavender field. Smell the lavender. Or lilac blossoms in the spring that you can smell. Take in that scent. What is that like? Feel purple. Breathe in, hold, breathe out. Now, I want you to take stock and analyze what you felt during that time, that comfortable feeling. What did you notice? What color did you feel was your favorite? Think of that color. Breathe in, hold, and out. Perfect. Now, hopefully, after doing that mindfulness exercise and grounding yourself, you feel a little bit more relaxed and present for this presentation. Again, if you feel overwhelmed or start to feel emotional at any point in time, check in with yourself. It's okay to feel stress and anxiety. This happens. But use these breathing techniques and count 3, 2, 4. In, hold, out. Then visualize your favorite color and use that and practice with that. You can use this visualization here and also in the future after this presentation. So we want to take this opportunity to show you how you can connect. We have a way that you can connect with the community that we think is extremely important. RIT Archives has set up and made this platform for us online. It is for anyone who wants to interact during this time, during this pandemic. There are ways on here that you can manage and cope with the pandemic and COVID-19. You can share your experiences, photos, and videos through these RIT pandemic journals. You can even write. You can do whatever you want. It is available for RIT students, staff, and faculty, and alumni like yourselves. So maybe if you see a few of these, you'll connect with some of them. Oh, I'm not the only one that uses this coping strategy, or oh, that's a great idea. There are different ways that we can manage and work our way through this pandemic. I also wanted to say that there's one other thing with a slide related with self-care later on in the presentation, and we will talk about that more. In this first one, the person here is talking about how getting outside and being in nature, that calm, positive energy just infuses them, and they take hikes every day in order to be able to do that and to be able to cope. This one is kind of funny because everyone is inside and we're doing what we're doing and maybe we're chatting and everything. But in this picture, this person lives by themselves and the only person they have with them is their plant. So their plant is their new office mate. Here, the person is trying to make the most of their time at home. But it's important to understand there's no right way or wrong way to spend the time that you have right now at home. Managing boredom can be part of what you need to do. You have to do what makes you feel comfortable and what makes you feel happy. For those of you that are not from the Rochester area, we have this amazing festival that happens every year, the Lilac Festival. And it's our time here in Rochester to celebrate the coming of spring and the lilac blossoms that come out during that time. Obviously, because of COVID-19, it was canceled. But this shows how one person was able to still connect and show the spirit of that festival and what that brings to us here. This is a cute one. This is homeschooling. It's explaining how our spaces, the places that we live and that we work in, have changed and how we're now sharing those spaces in ways we never did before. You see the family at the table working on their homework while, the parents are working on their work. In this one, the author explains finding their bliss during this time and how they're coping with all of these changes that are happening now. Jessica and I actually added our own personal ones. This one here is mine. I sent it into the journal. You can actually send things in anonymously. I put my name in mine, but you can send anything in anonymously, anything you think or feel, anything about your family. Growing up with, I grew up in my family with old Fiesta-ware dishes, and my mom and my grandmother collected them, and they've actually handed them down for several generations now. And growing up, I would go into a cupboard, open my mom's cupboard, and see all of these gorgeous, beautifully colored dishes, and it would just bring me such happiness to see them. And so at that time, when I wanted to feel and bring a spark of joy and happiness to my life, I went and found my mom's old dishes and unpacked them and set them all out and put them in my cupboards. And so now when I open those cupboards and look at them, it just brings me that joy to see that those beautiful colors and that Fiesta ware. So for myself, Jessica, I know it might be hard to see the writing for my poem that I wrote. So you can actually make the presentation larger so that you can read it. But basically, finding my bliss has always been related to writing. That's the thing for me. Whenever I've been overwhelmed or just things are going too fast and I need to take a moment to slow down and pause for a moment, I take a detour and I write and I just put out words. It doesn't matter what they are. I just fill the page with words, and that helps me to calm and to ground myself and feel more centered. That writing and journaling really helps me. So now we're going to get into the meat of this presentation. We're going to explain what are the different kinds of stress and what that means. What are the definitions for things like stress? We want to emphasize your approach to stress. And so you have to understand what is stress and what causes it first before you can try and manage it and fix it. So we're going to review some definitions. I also want to add that this information is very superficial. We did not go in depth with this. It's just a very light discussion on this topic and for each thing. First, we want to talk about like eustress and anxiety and understanding what the difference between those things are. Eustress and distress are two different things. We tend to assign positive stress for eustress and negative stress for distress. As Jessica said, it's very important to understand the difference between these two topics and how you can manage them. So we all experience stress every day in our lives. Nobody can avoid it, right? But we can prepare for it. We have presentations and different things that come up related to our jobs or lives in general that are stressful. And related to COVID, with all these changes with our routines, our new normal, what that looks like, you can have different reactions and different feelings of stress. It's important that you understand the difference between eustress and distress. The word stress itself and things in general can cause stress. In general, we view that word as negative and a bad thing. But we actually do have positive stress that we experience that can benefit us and our lives every day. So what does eustress look like? Let's say, for example, you have a positive challenge that comes in your life. It's going to cause you stress. But during that challenge, you embrace it. It's something that you feel is a good challenge. You're excited about it. You're looking forward to it. You want it. And then you're going to figure out how you can make that happen and achieve your goals. But stress is going to happen along the way. But that stress is very manageable for you. Distress is the opposite of eustress. Distress can be either short-term or long-term, whereas eustress is very short-term. This is a reaction to possibly stress that is negative or boredom. This stress can actually be ongoing and can lead to and can cause anxiety, and it can cause physical challenges and emotional issues. You can feel a loss of motivation, a fatigue, just a lack of wanting to do anything. You notice with eustress, many times people are just very excited. For example, let's say I'm home and I'm cooking, and it's a new experience for me.
So perhaps they'll set up a garden for the first time and experience growing something and planting something and figuring out how to lay out the spacing of your garden. If you want to buy seeds or start to grow seeds for the first time, these are challenges. And along the process, it can be a really motivating and challenging experience for you. So that's a positive way of managing eustress.
So that's part of why I want you to understand. Now, Jessica's going to explain the difference between stress and anxiety. What Kelsey said is a perfect intro to this. So we have these positive and negative stressors in our lives, and they have power. Stress itself can influence our perspective and how we see things in a situation. Maybe we start to feel some distress in our lives, and then we approach those things. If we change our perspective, we can make that negative distress become a positive eustress. So for example, looking back, when I went to college, going to college is a positive stress. That's a eustress. This is a positive thing. All those possibilities, looking forward to the future and what's going to happen, but it can be stressful in a negative way too. I'm going to give you a moment just to look at the slide and read the differences between stress and anxiety. I would like to clarify the difference between stress and anxiety. During the pandemic, a lot of people are experiencing stress, and that stress can change and become anxiety. Stress is appropriate for this time. It's an appropriate response. Everyone kind of should be feeling it, but it's a short-term thing, whereas anxiety is more of a long-term thing. The difference is that with stress, in general, understand that with stress, it tends to be an external trigger that causes it. Something externally outside of me causes stress to happen upon me. For example, like COVID-19 happening. Now remember, with COVID-19 and this pandemic, people were so terrified of running out of supplies. Things like toilet paper. You would go to the store and there wouldn't be any toilet paper there. So people were experiencing a stress during that time and responding to it. They were feeling discomfort, and that stress was affecting their body. They were becoming more tense, or maybe they were starting to have thoughts that weren't positive in nature, and they didn't know how to approach things and how to do things. The key with stress is that when that external thing happens, that problem will resolve itself and go away. Stress is a short-term problem that can be resolved. But with anxiety, this is completely different. With anxiety, you can have external triggers, but most of the time the triggers are internal. It's something from inside us that comes up and persists and causes the anxiety in us. It's like stress, but amplified and taken up a notch. You're going to experience physical symptoms such as heart palpitations, hand shaking, cold sweats, any kind of sweating at all, maybe nausea. Those things can lead to more permanent and serious emotional and physical consequences. With the anxiety, when the external stress goes away, because I already have those internal stressors and triggers, my anxiety continues. So even though the problem may resolve itself and go away, my anxiety and my stress does not go away along with it. So that's one of the differences between stress and anxiety, is the time frame and whether it goes away or not. Now we'd like to transition into techniques and talk about how we can cope with stress itself. I want to emphasize again that in this next part related with the tools that we are offering to you, I want you to remember that one size does not fit all. Everyone is different. What works for you may not work for another person. But if you find some things that work for you, please try them and take them on and do them. Identify your own coping mechanisms and your own strategies. Maybe you already have some in place. And at the end of this presentation, we would love for all of you to share some of the coping mechanisms and strategies you've come up with during this time. So we have the pillars of emotional regulation. This actually becomes a chart that's a cycle that we'll show you in just a moment. But first, we need to discuss what these pillars are and some of the coping strategies that can go with them. And it's equally important to always go back to your basics, to always check your foundation, to look at these pillars, these 4 things, and examine them. Look at that foundation and make sure that those are in place and those are solid. Are you eating right? Are you sleeping right? Do you have some social support? Are you interacting with people? Are you getting up and moving? How are you functioning in your everyday life? These pillars are the basis for that. You can't achieve and succeed at your goals until you have your pillars and foundations set up and going smoothly. Maybe you want to start a project, but you're not sleeping well. That lack of sleep is going to affect the success of your project and how well you work on it. So sleeping is very important. Having that social support and connection with people, also super important. And one thing that just popped into my head, one thing that I've noticed with these pillars that's important is that everyone has access to certain basic needs in our lives. And there are certain things that we need. These pillars are the 4 things that we need. We need resources. We need support. And in the end,
sometimes people don't have these access.
Sorry. Sometimes people don't have access to some of these things, and that's why their pillars and foundations aren't as strong as they could be because of a lack of resources. I'd also like to add on to Jessica's comment that coping strategies and skills, these are things that we do to take care of and manage ourselves and help us to be successful. But sometimes we try things and they don't work, and that's okay. Sometimes we have to adjust the things that we're doing in our life or our strategies, or coping strategies that worked before may not work now. So consciously and subconsciously, we also have to pay attention to that everyone's coping strategies may be different. Now I'd like to talk a little bit about emotional regulation. So this is the cycle that we were talking about. This is how your feelings, thoughts, behaviors all affect each other. I'm going to expand on each part of this just a little bit. So when we have healthy emotional regulation, we successfully are able to manage our responses to situations and experiences when they come up. And we can support that emotional regulation by going back and recognizing and noticing within ourselves and thinking about the emotions that we are feeling and the behaviors that we are doing. If you look at each of these things, each one on this chart influences the other. We have to figure out where we can increase and practice our coping skills, like with mindfulness and grounding. Practicing our breathing and our visualization exercises can be one strategy to help you to control the thoughts and set up your emotional system and regulate it. So next, I would like to talk a little bit about those thoughts. So we're related with the thoughts that we have. We're constantly having thoughts running on a loop in our mind. You're constantly thinking, you never stop. And unfortunately, some of those thoughts may be negative or are unhelpful or are just not beneficial to us. Related to the COVID-19 pandemic, you may have a lot more of these negative thoughts coming up and cycling around and circling around inside your mind. We want you to take a moment to analyze right now, what are some of those thoughts? Maybe find one thought that you think is kind of spinning around in your mind all the time that is negative or unhelpful. I want you to be aware of that thought. Sometimes these thoughts are subconscious, but those subconscious things need to be brought to the conscious forefront. For me, I can give you a perfect example of this. Because of having to work from home and being home all the time, and with everything around me here, that transition and that process from working at the office to here was difficult. My motivation went down. I felt like I couldn't get the same amount of productivity done at home that I could at work. It's so different. It seems so much slower and like I can't get things done and I can't catch up. So in that moment, I have this subconscious thought that's negative, that's feeding me, and it's defeating my motivation and bringing me down even more, that I'm not as productive as I should be. But I need to pull that thought out and look at it. I need to reframe it. I'm doing the best I can at this point in time with what I have. You know, things are harder right now, and it's harder to pull those subconscious thoughts out. But every day we have them, and those subconscious thoughts are influencing our emotions and our behaviors and what we do. We need to identify those thoughts, bring them to the conscious forefront, and take that opportunity to change how we're thinking and change that thought. We need to develop affirmations. So these affirmations, these are positive statements or comments that can help us deal with and change those negative thoughts that we have. So sometimes I think, oh, I'm not working hard enough. I'm not doing this enough. But I can reframe that and give myself an affirmation. I can say, I'm doing the best I can with what I have in this moment. I can analyze myself first and figure out what I'm doing and change that. I wanted to add one more thing. So there's a thought of reframing. That's reframing is when we're taking those affirmations. Those are those affirmations. We're taking those negative thoughts and making them more positive. We want to have that feeling of positivity, but we don't want that feeling to be fake. Sometimes when we meet with counselors or as counselors, we make mistakes by using these positive affirmations or this reframing and this positivity to try and squelch and hide our doubts and to not face them and to not look at those emotions that we're feeling and to kind of tamp them down. Stress is something that we have. Stress is something we need to deal with. It causes illness. Things happen. But we cannot use positive thinking to ignore those things and stop thinking about what they are. We have to face them and deal with them. Positivity is something that is supportive. It's going to help us. It looks more like, okay, I have these feelings, I have these negative thoughts, I need to recognize them, I feel this way about my family, there's something that I want to do about it. But in the same way, we can deal with those thoughts in a negative way, or we can deal with them in a positive way and think of them in a positive way. And that's the feeling that we want. We don't want to suppress the negative feelings or the emotions that we have. We want to face them and confront them. Again, Lorianne will share this PowerPoint with you after the presentation so that you can blow it up and see it and read it better and everything. The basic point is this is showing us an example about things that people may say or do related to COVID-19. Somebody might say, hey, you're feeling this frustration or you're feeling that, and they may dismiss it in a toxic positive way. Instead, we want to reframe things and we want to validate what people are saying and not dismiss what they're saying. Yeah, it's okay that you missed that opportunity or whatever it is that happened, but we want to recognize when we're using toxic positivity and when we're using validation and hope and the difference between those two. So this slide we borrowed actually from the National Death Therapy Organization. It's a great resource if anyone wants to look into that. It talks about all the different things that people think they should be doing during this time of COVID-19. The things you should be doing because you're at home. You should be doing this, 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 and this. You should be working out. You should be, finding new hobbies. You should be A, B, C, X, Y, Z. All of these things that you should be doing, but sometimes that adds more stress to us and our lives. Should. Oh, it just makes it more stressful. We need to let go of the shoulds and accept what we can. Thank you, Jessica. So during this part, I want to talk about kind of managing some of our emotions and what we can do that. Before, Jessica mentioned about the cycle of thoughts that we have inside our mind and how that works subconsciously and consciously. And sometimes we don't even notice or realize what we're thinking and what those emotions can do to us. But it's important that when we talk about managing our emotions, that we have to recognize and notice the emotions that come up and what's happening. Those emotions might be uncomfortable, and that's okay. We expect that. Just because they're uncomfortable doesn't mean you box them up and push them away and ignore them and put them on a shelf for another day. You need to unpack that. You need to manage and figure out and notice what you're feeling and honor and respect it and take a good look at it. Right now, I want to talk about waves, like ocean waves. So imagine you're a person that's in a wave and that you've been hit by a wave before. That feeling, you get hit and you're overwhelmed and then it recedes, and then you get hit and it recedes. That's like emotions. Emotions are like waves that we experience every day in our lives. You can ride these waves and you can swim into them, or you can let them hit you full on in the face. And sometimes that happens and you don't expect it. But these emotions pop up and they come up, and sometimes we're thrown off balance because of it, like getting hit by a wave. But you can confront, face those emotions, and you can manage them. They are manageable. Again, I want to mention mindfulness. It's a very powerful tool that you can use to help ground yourself to deal with these emotions in a quick way so that they don't overwhelm you and knock you down. I want you to take a moment to kind of sit there and think with that. Think about the grounding, think about the mindfulness and how that can help support you to take that moment, to take that pause, to get yourself centered and to take control and manage. Use that visualization in order to help you see where wonderful things are happening, how you can connect. Use Google, use apps, use your phone. There are many different avenues. Even YouTube has visualization practices and videos that you can use. Maybe, juggle several, you're juggling several different things at home right now, work and home life and everything. Take a moment during your day to just stop and feel that calm. Let that wave recede rather than hitting you full on. I thought that this image was just the perfect image that shows it's a perfect metaphor to show exactly what riding that wave instead of crashing headfirst into that wave would look like, and how you can manage your emotions. You're not suppressing your emotions. You're not blocking them. You're not ignoring them. You're embracing them and looking at them and sitting down and figuring out how to manage them. It's important to figure out your emotional responses, because emotions can be a lot. Sometimes we can get stuck in a downward spiral and feel like we're just falling into that negative emotion. But with support and sharing your experiences and getting support from things and trying to ride the wave instead, you can get beyond that. Now I'd like to share some tips for managing behavior. We have emotional responses that we have within ourselves, and these guide our behaviors. These responses cause snap behaviors to happen that we have, and we can set up strategies to help us not have a snap reaction to something. Sometimes we may eat in order to deal with things. Sometimes we may hide and isolate ourselves. Sometimes we'll use avoidance or try to avoid making decisions because they're uncomfortable. These are things that we can't do. I invite you to look at some of your tendencies. What do you do when your emotions come up? And what coping strategies do you currently use? As Jessica mentioned before, we need to check back with our pillars and our foundation, those 4 things. Are we sleeping properly? Are we eating properly? And how are those things affecting the emotions I'm feeling now and my behavior that I'm exhibiting now? And how can I take care of myself better in this moment? One thing we have is we call it the opposite action challenge. So in this situation, for example, we have COVID-19 and it's going to be going on for a while. It's not ending anytime soon. So we can become very depressed about this or sad, and we just don't know what to do related to this. And there are a lot of questions related to it that we still don't have answers to, and we can be stuck in that feeling. So I challenge you in that moment when you're feeling that sadness, when you're feeling blue, take that opportunity to go outside and walk for 5 minutes. You may not want to, but do it anyway. Do the opposite of what you want to do. You might find that it'll make you feel better, put you in a better mood, and invigorate you and give you some energy that you didn't have before. Also, sometimes when we're feeling sad, we think, oh, well, I'll watch a sad movie because it matches my affect. But that's probably not the best idea. I challenge you, when you're in those when you're having those feelings of sadness, watch a comedy instead and see what happens. Maybe it'll help to change your mood. Also, one of the most important things is developing a routine. In this new normal, everything's been turned on its head, and we have to figure out how we can manage and handle that. We need a routine and some things that are consistent in our lives. So the things that we had before, the routines we had that we valued and cherished and appreciated before, some of those things can still stay there. But if we abandon those routines and don't set up new routines for us emotionally and physically, we can be negatively harmed from that. So you have to try and look at what you did before, borrow and take what you can from what you did before and apply it to today. Try to make new habits and new routines for your new normal and be consistent with them. Dive in. We can all do this together, I promise. Just briefly, I wanted to touch on this. Some people, you can look at this. This is a self-care wheel. It talks about your physical and emotional, different things such as like eating and sleeping, different things that you can do related to your psychology, your spiritual health. This wheel just shows different ideas of how you can positively support these different aspects of your self-care. Jessica, just want to add quickly, with this related to COVID-19, if you look at this wheel, you'll recognize and realize that some of the things that are on there now maybe just aren't appropriate or just aren't doable because of the restrictions that are on us now. So before COVID, oh yeah, all of these made sense when you read them, but now after COVID, because of the regulations that we have, just keep in mind that some of these things just aren't going to be possible for you to be able to do, but that doesn't mean that there aren't other opportunities and other things that you can do with this to help you during this time. Just keep that in mind when you review this later. These are just some simple takeaways for you to read that we hope you got from this presentation. So basically we kind of summarized subconsciously, hopefully, what you internalized from this. And if you look at this, if you look at the picture that's off to the side, you'll see that it says, you know, you're unproductive by the standards of the world before. But that's only based on what the world was before, and that now after COVID-19, that world is gone. We have a new normal, we're in a new world. So again, you need to do what works for you and fits you and works in your life and what helps you. And what works for you may not work for another. Here are some local and national resources that we wanted to provide. We'll send the PowerPoint to you, obviously, so that you can use them. You can use Zoom, I think, in order to contact them in different ways. There was a book that you can read to children that's very nice. Maybe if you work with children or you have your own children at home, there's a resource, a book that talks about the struggles and the challenges that we're feeling and the things that they're seeing and how we can address it and help children deal with those emotions that are coming up and why they're feeling the things that they're feeling. Also, this is the book, The Color Monster. Journal therapy can help too. Art is a huge thing that you can use to help analyze emotions and release emotions and talk about emotions. So it's just another resource that you can do. And these are other resources that could help you to deal with and handle those situations. These are some of the resources that we used. I think that this is a good place where
we can take a moment to connect with each other. So you can see each other who are in our audience, and we connect through the chat, as we mentioned before. So perhaps if you'd like to, you can share what's working for you right now. Maybe it's like some things that you felt have been beneficial for you might be beneficial for some other. So just for a few minutes, let's open the chat. And also, we're going to save some time for Q&A, right? Okay, so we do have some, I see we do have some Q&A questions in this chat. I'm sorry. Can others see the Q&A? Okay. Okay, so we do have a few questions. So I'll sign what you have written and then we can respond. One person wrote that they're supposed to go for a walk with a friend who is not being careful and told this individual that they're not planning to wear a mask. Now, this individual wears a mask every time they go out and they don't have family that they hang around with, like their friend does. So this individual is getting anxious when they wear a mask for a long time and is feeling stressed out about going for this walk today. The friend was really excited about getting together, so they don't want to disappoint her. How do we deal with this type of stress? Okay. This is a great question. First, I want to acknowledge we understand the stress of trying to figure out what's best to do in this current COVID-19 environment when the stress of wearing a mask. There are some people who have anxiety or their increased stress is a concern when they're wearing a mask. So their breathing is labored. So I just want to acknowledge that. You don't want to disappoint your friend. I know many of us hate that feeling of saying no. Even if you apologize, you just don't want to disappoint your friend. I think there are some different ways you could approach this scenario. Sorry, Kelsey, did you want to add something? I'm thinking about how it's possible to communicate. Being able to see each other's faces is really important. We don't want to ignore that piece of the stress as well. So you need to feel comfortable yourself expressing to your friend what you don't feel comfortable about. It's the same thing. You don't want to so what's helpful at the same time is the first thing is for communication. And if we're deciding to communicate, you need to explain what you just explained it really beautifully there. We don't want to disappoint our friends. You could say something like, I'm really looking forward to spending time with you, but it would help me feel more confident if perhaps we can meet virtually instead of in person right now. And just express that you really care about your friend at the same time, but you do have to share your concerns. Let's see, so the next one asked if you cannot name the emotion that you're feeling, what do you do instead? There are many things that come up and many things that you feel, and maybe it's hard to recognize or understand what it is. Naming your emotions can be hard. So,
and it may not need to be done. You may just need to be able to pull that emotional out and recognize what's inside of it and what you can do with it instead. Sometimes we have issues with grief and sadness and all of these things that come up that we think that's one emotion, but it's really multiple and tangled together. So it's okay to look at that and just figure out what's involved there, but you don't have to name it.
I think just wanted to add too, if you can't name it, perhaps it would help to start with describing it. You know, maybe you could name it with a color, or describe it using a color instead of the name of the emotion itself. If you feel like you're feeling stress, or if you're feeling tension in your neck, that would also help to describe what it is your body is feeling in order to identify the emotion. So the last one. I know we're going back and forth before we have to leave. I know time is running short. Let's see, one more comment says, I've been having anxiety since COVID-19 started. I've had many negative thoughts, like I want to start walking on the treadmill, but did not get on, and I feel I failed. And I've had many thoughts of the reasons why. So overwhelmed with many resources that I have a hard time focusing. Many of us are feeling similar things. You're not alone. So maybe we have ambitions and ideas of what we should do, that we should take that walk, but maybe we can't get ourselves to get on that treadmill. I think it's important we talk about having compassion for ourselves and being gentle with ourselves. You know, things are not going to be perfect right now. So we're doing the best we can. Remind yourself that we're really doing the best that we can. So it looks like our time has run out. Thank you for your questions, and we can keep on discussing, but I know that our time is short. So if you just would switch to the next slide, please. Here's our email address and contact information. There's resources, and if you want information clarified, please feel free to contact us. Lorianne, thank you so much. I really appreciate what you've been able to share with us today. I'm so sorry I lost you for a moment. The power at my house went off, so I disconnected and now I'm connected with you again. I'm so sorry to say that time has run out, but we really appreciate all of the comments and the questions. If people continue to have more questions, feel free to contact us, contact me, and we can forward it on to Jessica or Kelsey, or look again in the Q&A after the webinar is complete. So just briefly wanted to say thank you so much, Kelsey and Jessica. We appreciate the interpreters and the captionists and all the people who've been participating in this webinar today. Thank you. We appreciate your spending your time with us. We're going to post the information soon. Hopefully people will be able to continue to make connections and take advantage of the information you've been able to share. Thank you so much. And thank you, Lorianne, for hosting. Everyone have a great day. Take care. Bye.